This is Road Noise, Life 1 Mile at a Time, episode number 9. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Don't Let the Devil Get You Down, Make Something with Your Hands, and if time permits, Saying No Next Year. Hello once again, I'm Mike Blackston, and this is Road Noise, Life 1 Mile at a Time, the podcast where I talk to you while you're sitting in the passenger seat with me, driving along on another road trip. This time I'm on my way to Conway, South Carolina. It's late November, the week of Thanksgiving, and we're heading to Conway to do two stones, kind of quickies. This time of the year can get kind of tricky for me, especially on the weeks that the holidays fall on, because monument companies don't want to get too involved during the week, knowing that they're going to have a day, maybe two, on Thursday and Friday that they're not going to be able to work. And so I have to kind of make something happen sometimes in the middle of the week. And that's what's happening this week. With it being Thanksgiving, things have gotten real slow for me all of a sudden. It's not that work has stopped, it's just that I'm in that kind of a slow time in the granite industry for an etcher when there's work to be done, but the stones aren't ready. And so I'm kind of in a idle mode, and I had to make some phone calls and make something happen this week to go to Conway. But it's going to get us by, and things are going to be great. And as you heard in the intro, I've got about 3 things I want to talk about in this podcast, and if there's a little bit of time left, I might talk about one more at the end as well. So we'll see what happens. I'm glad you're riding along with me. I'm glad to have your company. It's early in the morning, 4 o'clock. Well, 4:37 now. I got up at 4 o'clock, and I had to get all this stuff set up in the car and then get going, and I tried to go by Walmart. No, I didn't. I tried to go by McDonald's and get a cup of coffee, and they weren't open yet, so I guess I'm going to have to wait. Coming up on a little town called Washington, Georgia here in just a few minutes, and they should be open, I think, by the time I get there, so I can get through the drive-thru and get some coffee. And what that means to you is that maybe my mouth won't be so dry and I won't be making so many mouth noises, which I'm hoping that I'll hear well enough in the playback to cut out if there are any dry mouth kind of smacky noises or anything like that. It's just important for me to keep something wet, something to drink while I'm doing these podcasts as we drive along. It might be a little different. I want to apologize before I get started, too, about the last episode. If you're somebody who listens to all of these, then you may have heard last episode number 8, where the audio was a little bit crunchy. And that was my fault. I tried a couple of things new last episode, and I'm trying a couple of things new on this episode, too, although I hope I'm even able to make this audio available to you. Let's not hit those deer. Some deer on the side of the road. Couldn't see them because of the tall grass till I was right up on top of them. And they didn't apparently see me until I was right on top of them either. And that's dangerous. That can do a lot of damage to the deer and your car. Where I'm from, and traveling these back roads, especially early in the morning, that is your number one danger, is deer. White-tailed deer. Anyway, I digress. I tried something different, and I'm going to try something different again in this episode. I'm trying to get rid of as much of the road noise as I can so that it's not a loud, annoying rumble under my voice. I really kind of like having a little bit of it, but I just kind of want it to be just in the background, a little bit of it. I mean, the podcast is called Road Noise, and one of the reasons I chose that was as I recorded some episodes before I even released it, I realized I was not going to be able to get rid of the road noise from the tires under my Buick as I drove and made these podcasts. I wasn't going to be able to get rid of it completely, and I thought, well, I'm going to just have to make sure people understand that that's part of the podcast, and my wife listened to it and thought it was kind of charming for what the podcast is, and so we just went with it, and then I decided road noise was a great name for the podcast. So I don't want to get rid of it now that it is part of the podcast. I don't want to get rid of it completely, but I don't want it to be something that is annoying. And so I'm trying to learn how to set up the dynamics of the microphones that I use when I do this podcast so that it picks up more of my voice and less of the noise. And I played around with it last week, and I think I got a good little sweet spot with it. The problem was I was also testing something else. I use a free audio editor called Audacity. You can go to audacity.com and download it on your computer for free. It's fantastic if you like doing this stuff. It does everything that a basic podcaster would want to do. If you know even a little bit about audio editing, and I know a good bit about audio editing because I did it at a radio station when I ran a radio show years ago, and it's just kind of been a hobby of mine since then until I started podcasting and really got into it. But even if you know a little bit, or even if you know nothing, Audacity is really intuitive, and you can get what you need to get done if you really don't know much about audio editing at all. As long as you can get the microphone to record into your computer, you're good to go, and you can figure it out along the way. And there's a feature in Audacity called compression. And what compression does is, I'm one of those people that I have to be careful because I have a voice that is built for theater. I project. And part of my voice, there are times when essences of my voice really can get a high pitch, and when it gets that high pitch, it will peak out the levels, and there'll be a spike way above the normal average level of what I'm talking, and I like to bring those spikes down. Well, at first I would run the playback, and as I was running the playback, I would watch the spikes, and when I came to one of those really big spikes, I could bring it down with amplification. In Audacity, what you can do if you hit one of those things is you highlight it, and you can bring down the amplification just on that spike to a level to where you are normal with everything else. And I would go through and I would do it with each and every individual spike. And it got, with these hour-long podcasts, it would take so long to get that done that I was searching desperately for something that would help me to do that where I didn't have to go and spend hours and hours bringing those spikes down. Well, it's called compression, and what it does is it brings the spikes down closer to the average and brings the low ones up to closer to the average. You can also do it with something called levelator. I have levelator on my computer, but the reason I don't like to use levelator is because what it does is it takes everything as an average and brings it up. What happens then is when there's road noise under my voice, but I'm not speaking, and all that's playing for a couple of seconds is the road noise, all of a sudden the road noise gets amplified because the computer wants to say there's an area that's really low and needs to be leveled off closer to the speaking. It doesn't recognize it. Compression does a better job of that. And so what happened is I had seen someone on YouTube, I was learning how to use it correctly or trying to, and one guy said if you don't like the compression the way it does the first time, then you can just reapply the compression as many times as you need to get the levels where you need it. Well, there were only a few levels that I needed to get really far down, but I didn't feel like doing it each and every individual time, like I said, so I just applied it a second time. Well, the first time was fine, but what I have found is it crunches up your voice and gives you this kind of it almost sounds like an over-amplification, like you've peaked out your levels too much, and that's what happened. And so before I realized that I had saved the project on Audacity, and in order for me, I could have gone back to the raw files and started from the beginning, but I was behind the 8 ball. I had a lot to do, and when I listened to it, I said it sounds enough to where it would bother me, or where not even really where it would bother me, but where I could hear it, but the average listener probably wouldn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. So I went ahead and released it, and on the text show notes and any kind of a text that you would see wherever you're picking it up from your or your podcast player, I just put a little apology at the beginning. If this sounds crunchy, it's just because of something I was dealing with, and it should be fine. And so I left it at that. So all that to say, I'm sorry if it sounded a little crunchy, if it sounded a little weird. That's why. I just had a little issue with compression, and I couldn't get it back without going through the entire process again, and I just didn't have time to do that. So why am I going to be a little bit nervous about how this is going to sound when I hit the playback after I've recorded this entire episode? Because my wife and I are directing a little concert in our local town called A Prelude to Christmas at the local theater. We've got, I think, 6 or 7 people that, when you count me and Kayla and my son, that are performing in this. And it's kind of a thank you to the theater for all of the money that they've spent. They've been renovating a space called the Arts Center right behind the theater, and it's just an addition to the theater. It gives us a rehearsal space, dressing rooms, and all kinds of stuff, reception rooms, and the rehearsal space is a secondary theater, and that's where we're going to be holding the concert. And I wanted to say thank you to the theater and to the city for helping or for spending all of that money to enhance the arts in Elberton. It's a wonderful space, and I just wanted to say thank you. I asked the theater director, who happens to be my co-host for Q1 Go, the theater show, Tony King, if she thought it'd be a good idea to put on a benefit concert, and she said, I think that'd be a great idea. Well, before you know it, she's calling me up asking when I wanted to put it on the schedule in December, and we did, and now it's bearing down upon us. Well, in practice, I've been trying to get people used to using the microphones. McDonald's, I'm at this little place called Washington, and McDonald's does not have their light on, so I'm not going to stop. There's another one coming up here probably in about 20 minutes. Anyway, where was I? Oh, I told Tony that I wanted to do that. She said yes, and we put it on the schedule, so now here we are. And I'm trying to get people used to standing at the microphones because we're going to do it concert style. We're not going to wear, when we do the productions for the theater, we wear facial microphones. Cordless mics with battery packs that are on our backs, and we just wear microphones on our face, and that's that. You don't have to worry about standing at a microphone. It's taped to your face at the perfect position, and it's good. And these entertainers, most of us, well, about half of us are used to working with regular microphones, but a few of us are not. A few of them are not. And so I want them to be used to standing up the mics, and I put my microphone that I usually use for this podcast on one of the microphone stands, and I forgot to get it off the microphone stand. It's an SM58 performance mic, professional performance mic, and it has all of I really like using it for my podcasting, but both mine and Tony's mics that we use for the other podcast are now on microphone stands there, and I forgot to get them, and I don't have a key to the Arts Center, or I would have stopped by and gotten it. So how am I recording this? If you have a Wii, an original Wii, you may have run across the video game Disney Sing It. And Disney Sing It comes with a Digitech low-end microphone that has a USB connection. And I tested it a few days ago on the computer to see if it even worked, and I can't remember how it sounded when I played it back. I was kind of running out of the house when I was doing the playback. Kayla was saying, let's go. We were going somewhere, and I didn't really get to test it really well, but I do know that it works. And I'm sitting here watching the computer, and it's picking up my voice. It seems like okay, so we'll see what the sound quality is on this microphone. I think it will be just fine for an episode of the podcast, but worst comes to worst, I will be getting back my SM58 and getting the good sound quality in the next episode at the very least. Now, there will be, within a few weeks, I'm not sure when it will be, another microphone that I'm going to be testing. I'm not even sure what the thing is. I don't know what the model is or who makes it. I just saw it the other day, and it kind of hit me that it would be perfect for this particular podcast. And it's one of those microphones. It's a headset and microphone built in. It's got the little boom microphone that goes around and comes in front of your mouth. And it has a USB plug as well. And so I said, I'm going to try that and see how that works on the computer. while I'm driving, see what the sound is for that, because that would be a little bit safer than the way I'm doing it. Right now I am holding a microphone with my right hand. I always have my hand on the wheel with my left hand as I'm driving, and I drive that way anyway. I usually don't have both hands on the wheel as I drive anyway, so I didn't figure it was any more dangerous than anything else. I don't smoke or anything like that, and I see people all the time with a cigarette in their hand as they're driving, so I figured if they can do that, I can hold a microphone and talk. And then if I did have somebody in the passenger seat, I'd be talking anyway, so my mind would be split doing that. That's why you hear a lot of times when I'm doing this podcast, you'll hear a little pause from time to time between the sentences. I don't usually talk like that, but when your mind is split between trying to concentrate on what you're saying, but more importantly, concentrating on the road in front of you and what's going on around you, there are little breaks from time to time, and that's what causes that when you hear me talking. But when I get that little headset with the boom microphone and test it out, I'm hoping that it will work well, because then I can just put it on and I will have a microphone in front of my face, but I can have both hands free. And while I'm not worried about the way I do it now, that would add a little more safety to it, and hopefully the sound will be very good for that, and I'll be able to use it for this podcast. So I've gone a long way before I even get into the topics on this one, telling you about that, but it bothered me. The sound quality of the last episode has bothered me all week since I recorded that and listened back to it once I had accidentally hit the save button on Audacity after I compressed it for a second time. It's just bothered me. I'm an audio snob, not so much as some of my mentors in the podcasting business that I listen to. Some of them are really, really smarty pants when it comes to audio quality and stuff like that, and I learn so much from them, and I try to apply it as quickly as I can. But I also take their advice, which is don't try to be perfect right off the bat. You'll learn as you go, your sound will get better, and as your audience builds, your sound is also going to build. And if they love you enough, they will listen to the previous episodes, whether the quality is quite as good as it is when they first start listening to you, as you have learned, because you get invested in someone's life. And when you start to like somebody and you know and trust them, then you're willing to forgive little things like a little bit of a crunchy sound in one of the podcast episodes. So let's jump into what I wanted to talk about in the first place. I had 3 topics that I mentioned, and a 4th one if time allows. And now I've lost my paper because I don't know what happened to it. I have a little small notebook that I keep in front of me, and it has my list of the topics. I don't script out what I'm going to talk about, but I do try to keep the topic list in front of me so that I can remember what I'm going to talk about next when I get to the end of the first one. But I'll see what happens then. I may have to pause this anyway, and when I do, to get my coffee, I'll find that notebook. But I do know that the first topic I want to talk about was TSO. And if you're a Trans-Siberian Orchestra fan, you know that TSO stands for Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Well, my wife and I are huge Trans-Siberian Orchestra fans. We love their music, especially at Christmas time. Now, I'm a Christmas 365 days a year kind of guy. I think I mentioned that on one of the previous episodes. But my mom had tickets. We like to go, but for the past 2 or 3 years, the money's just not really been there for us to be able to afford to go see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra in Greenville, South Carolina. They come every year right around Christmas time, or right around Thanksgiving usually is when their concert brings them to Greenville. And my mom got tickets this year and then found out she was not going to be able to go. So the other day, as we were at her house, she said, "How would you like to have our tickets? It'll be part of your Christmas. You don't have to pay us back. We'll make it part of your Christmas. And how would you like to take our spots? We have 2 seats for TSO." Well, of course, we said yes. I hated it because I couldn't take my son, and he likes them too. But he was going to be with them. They were going to Myrtle Beach. My stepdad is from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And every year they go 3 or 4 times a year to Myrtle Beach to visit his family. And there had been a fall trip they'd been wanting to take that had been previously postponed twice this year. Once because my son missed a day of school on the week they were going to go, and he had a test coming or something like that. Anyway, my mom didn't want to take him and have him miss 2 days of school, so they just rescheduled it. But the first time it was rescheduled, there was a hurricane coming, and it was when South Carolina, this is 2015 that I'm doing this recording, and this year, South Carolina, the coastal areas, and all the way into the mid part of the state, Columbia, had vast flooding in areas, and they didn't want to go during that time, so they postponed it the first time then, and then the second time because of Noah's school. So they were going to Myrtle Beach this weekend. It was the only time that they could go, and she said, we're going to come back in time for the show, but we'll be rushing, and there's a thing at our church we'd like to go to, so we're just going to give you our tickets if you want. And they did, and so we got to go to see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And I just want to tell you, if you are the type of person who likes rock concerts and also likes classical music, they call the style, I believe the term is neoclassical. And the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, although they do have a few little blues songs and stuff they play, they keep it primarily to Christmas music. If you don't have a chance, or if you haven't had a chance to go see them, I suggest you at least go get a soundtrack or look them up on YouTube. They're fantastic. If you like heavy guitars and lead guitar runs and licks and just, I really, it's hard to explain. Maybe I shouldn't have even put them on here to explain. Maybe they shouldn't have been a topic because it's really hard to put them into words. The guys come out there, they've all got this long hairband hair. They come out there in the tight leather and the things. I mean, there's fire and big, huge LED displays. I mean, it's like a heavy metal rock concert meets Broadway meets classical. There's an orchestra. One of the things I find really neat is that when they come, they have a string section that plays with them that is all string players from local orchestras. And so I guess they do that with every place they go. This was Greenville, so local Greenville area, South Carolina string section orchestra members were playing with them. And I guess, say, when they go to Birmingham, I think they go to Birmingham every year. When they go there, they'll have local Birmingham, Alabama area string players with them. And I think that's really neat to include the locals. And I guess it probably helps them a lot as well. There are some things I don't like about it that really kind of is a little much. They have these singers that come out. They got backup singers, and most of them are young, beautiful ladies in flowing dresses and skirts that I really don't know how to explain the skirts and the dresses either. They're just performance. They're not ball gowns, but they're not mini skirts or anything like that either. They're just kind of rock concert dress style. But they come up anyway, and the moves that they do these, they whip their honestly, I did not mean to say it this way, but I will go ahead and say it this way. They whip their hair back and forth constantly. They move around in this rock and roll kind of over the top style with everything they do. Every time someone sings, for the most part, it's, especially a guy, it's growling, that really growling, guttural kind of, it's not the heavy metal where you can't understand what they're saying. It's not the blah, blah, blah. They sing, and they sing well, but they kind of have a bluesy growl to them. There was one alto that was out of this world, blew me away. I could listen to her all night long. But other than that, most of the time, I really don't care a whole lot for the singers. But TSO is known more for their instrumentals and their guitar licks, and they're just mixing classical music and traditional Christmas with heavy metal guitar, and it's absolutely stunning. A lot of pyrotechnics. There was fire everywhere. It was really fun. And so if you like that type of thing, I suggest you get a copy of one of their CDs. I'm going to put some information. I may just go ahead and put a CD section in the resources page. I'm building my website better now. Since the last episode, I talked about a resource page that I wanted to build, and I started saying, I went back to my website and realized that I had just I had the home page and the podcast archive page built, and everything else was just sitting there with a little thing on the front of it saying, I'm sorry, this is under construction. So I had some time this week, and I said, I'm going to construct these pages. So the website is just about completely built. I am now adding stuff to the resource page. I have to go back and listen now to every episode of the podcast previous and write down anytime that there's a resource that I promised you I'd put on the website, and write it down so I can make sure that it does get on the website. And that's what I'm doing now. So I'm probably going to put some TSO soundtracks. I am an Amazon affiliate, and so I'm going to put those on the resources page, and you can go buy those soundtracks from Amazon right from my resource page, and I'm going to encourage you to do that. I'm not going to lie to you, I get a cut from that. That's why I'm an Amazon affiliate. I'm trying to do a little bit here and a little bit there to help pay for at this point, just help pay for the podcast hosting. And so if you'll go, you won't pay any more for it than you would pay normally paying through Amazon, but by using my link off of my resource page, you will give me just a tiny little cut every time you order something. It's kind of like a commission from Amazon for helping them sell, and that'll help me out to pay for the podcast hosting. That's one way we're doing that. So look for TSO on the resource page at www.roadnoisepodcast.com and pick you up a CD and see if you don't fall in love with them. And if you want to test it out beforehand to see if it's something that you even want to pay for, go to YouTube and just type in Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and you'll find all kinds of stuff from them. The second thing I want to talk about is a little more serious. I had a day yesterday. The last couple of podcasts I have talked about how this time of the year is vastly different for me work-wise than last year at this time. Because last year at this time, I was so work poor. There was just nothing coming in, that for several weeks, from the middle of September to the middle of February, I was hardly working at all, and I was to the point that I was afraid I was going to have to get a job somewhere else, do something else, give up the business that I've built. And it depressed me, and I was scared, and bills were behind, and people were calling me asking for their money, and it got to the point where, you have to put up or shut up. You can't put people off for very long. And then I had Christmas coming, and it was just a bad time last year, this time of the year. Through the help of some angelic friends of mine, I was able to make it through, and obviously through the help of God above, I was able to make it through. But I've been talking in the last couple of episodes about how this year I've been very busy this time of the year, and I'm thankful for that. And how my wife has started working at a major corporation with a really good job, making more than she's ever made before. And I'm thankful for that blessing. But I got down yesterday again, because out of all of the stuff I've been talking about in these podcast episodes about how it's better, the last couple of weeks have really not been all that great financially for me. I've got a lot of stone that I'm going to be etching that is pending. A lot of work where people are saying, Michael, I'm going to need it, and I'm going to need it before Christmas, I'm going to need it fast. But if the stone isn't ready from the manufacturers in Georgia, and if it hasn't been shipped on trucks to the monument companies where I go, I can't do the work. And they can't do anything for me. I can call them all day long and say, I need work, and they can say, I can't help you. We don't have the stone yet. And that's the situation, and has been for the last couple of weeks, and probably will be next week as well. Now, like I said at the beginning of this episode, I was able to kind of finagle a couple of stones this week, and I'll be making somewhere in the ballpark of about $500 this week. But for me, that's low. That's a really low week for me to just make $500. And while that probably sounds like a decent week for most people, when you realize that I travel all over the Southeast, my commute in a day can be 5 hours. I put a lot of miles on my car. I put a lot of gas in my car. I stay in a lot of hotel rooms, and that eats away at those profits. So $500 for, I'll make that today in a day's worth of work, and that's fantastic. And it'll be about 5 hours that I'll work. But that will be eaten up in, a lot of that will be eaten up. Probably nearly half of it by the time I half of it or more by the time I pay taxes and put money into the car on gas. I won't have to stay tonight. And the one thing I do have in Conway, where I'm going, is that the monument dealer that I work for has a little cabin that he's made out of a garage beside his house. He's a pastor, and when he has missionaries and people come in, he allows people to stay there, and he allows me to stay there during my trips if I need to. I don't always. This time of the year I like to stay beachside if I can, because Conway's right outside of Myrtle Beach, and you can get a hotel room really cheaply and stay beachside, which I love to do this time of the year as opposed to the off season, as opposed to the in season, because in the in season you're going to pay $150 a night for a decent hotel room. Anyway, I had a rough day yesterday because, and I think it really started with getting stopped by the police, because it cost me, I got a ticket. I'm going to have to pay a fine. All right, now I'm going to stop here. I'm going to pause because I'm going to McDonald's and I'm going to get my cup of coffee. So when I come back, I will have gotten my coffee, because this McDonald's is open and ready for business. So let me pause the podcast right here, and I'll be back to talk about that here in just a second. Okay, I am back. And this being the first official morning that I've had to scrape ice off my windshield, as cold as it is outside, it's 31 degrees by the thermometer in my car. That's some good hot coffee. Oh, it feels so good, and my voice is a little bit easier to handle, at least for me. Maybe I won't have to edit a whole lot of stuff out anyway, or after all. So what was I talking about? I was talking about getting stopped, and it really messed me up yesterday. I got flashed as I was taking my son to a doctor's appointment. My son and my daughter were in the car with me, and we came down this long stretch of road, and we were coming up. We were already running a little bit late. I was going to just barely get there on time, and I got flashed. You know, the car's coming the other way, and they flash their lights at you, telling you there's a cop up ahead. Well, that didn't bother me. I wasn't speeding, and I knew to watch out for him. So we passed him, and sure enough, he pulled out behind me. And he followed me, and every turn I made, he made. And I thought, I know I wasn't speeding when I went past him, but you ever get that feeling when a cop gets behind you that you're gonna get pulled even before the blue lights start? Well, I had that feeling, and I started telling Noah, I think I'm gonna get pulled. I don't know why, but I just kind of feel like the way he pulled out immediately when I passed and has followed right closely behind me every turn I've made, I'm going to get pulled. And sure enough, those blue lights hit, and he pulled me over, and I'm thinking, oh, this couldn't have even happened on the way out, so that we weren't late. We were already late for this doctor's appointment. I didn't know why. Now, let me say, first and foremost, I appreciate and love our men in arms. I love our law enforcement. They get a bad rap nowadays. People put them in a bad light. It's just, they have a tough job. And I want to send kudos out to this officer, because he was as nice and polite to me as any officer has ever been in a pullover. You know, I've had officers that would pull me over because, and maybe it was because of why I was getting pulled over, but I'd been speeding before, and they'd pulled me over, and it was just, they were rude. They didn't have anything to say, and they were rude. Well, I'm sitting here thinking, in those cases, you don't have to be rude. I'm being as respectful as I can possibly be. You have no need to be that rude. This guy was not. This guy was extremely nice, and I thank him so much for it, because I had my kids with me. It's embarrassing when you're the parent, but now you're having to be the one getting in trouble. Well, he comes to the window, and he asks for my license and insurance information, which I gladly give him. I already had it ready for him when he came to the window. He says, you know why I stopped you? I said, I have no clue. I said, I saw you sitting there, and I knew I wasn't speeding. He said, no, he wasn't speeding. I said, so what's this about? And he said, because the sticker decal on your license plate is expired. And it hit me. I never renewed the sticker decal on my license plate since July the 30th. Now, it's the 23rd of November. Yesterday, as this is recorded, when I got stopped, was the 23rd. No, it wasn't the 23rd. Excuse me. Wait a minute. Maybe it is. Maybe it was. Is today the 24th? Yeah, no, I'm right. Today is the 24th. So, yesterday was the 23rd of November. And it had been expired since July the 30th. I've never done that before, and I don't know why I did it this time. Get a drink of my coffee here. That was almost bad. It's dark in the car, and I almost drank that hot coffee and missed the little open area of the cup. I went to the side, and it almost went all over the place. It had been that long. July the 30th was when it expired. And so he says, let me just get back to my car, and because I told him, I said, I am so sorry. I said, I have no idea how I forgot about that. And I said, I travel all over the Southeast, and I have not been pulled yet. I'm so surprised I haven't been pulled yet. He just laughed and said, I'll be back. I'm gonna run this stuff, and I'll be right back. And I told my son while he was sitting there writing out the stuff, and we were sitting there waiting, and everybody that goes by is craning their necks. Ooh, what did he do? I said, I'm going to get a ticket. I said, I pray that I don't. Maybe he'll let me go with just a warning, but this is something that's should have been taken care of months ago. If it were a few days, even a few weeks, maybe he would just give me a warning, but I said, this has been months. This was July the 30th that it went out. It's November 23rd. I'm getting a ticket. And I was absolutely right. He came back to the window and sounded apologetic. I did write you a citation, sir, and here's what you do. And I was very nice and respectful for him because he was doing his job. And, I want to be that guy for people that make them smile when they leave. Even if I'm getting a ticket, I want the cop to think, you know what, I like what I do. I love what I do. I'm all about someone doing what they love for a living. And the people that serve our community and protect us, I know there are some bad seeds out there. I know that. But there's bad seeds in every profession, and you can't lock down on a profession just because there are some bad seeds. I know these carry guns and these have authority, but that does not make it okay to hate on or be disrespectful to all of them. You should never hate on or be you should never be disrespectful to any cop, regardless of whether you think they're bad. Why? Because they have authority. They can put your butt on the ground, slap you in cuffs, and put you in jail. Your best bet at any moment, it doesn't matter whether you think they should have done what they're doing as far as pulling you over or calling you out in something, whether or not you think you're in the right or not. If an officer of the law tells you to do something and starts using the authority that they do have the lawful right to tell you to submit to, that's exactly what you need to do. You need to submit to that authority calmly, quietly, and respectfully. If you'll do that, you'll be so much better in the end than if you start mouthing off or being what do they call it, resistful. If you start resisting. No, just do what they say, get it over with. Unless they're you're out in the middle of the country and they're doing something illegal and you're fighting for your life, that's the only time I would suggest resisting or anything like that. And then that's kind of a rare circumstance as far as that goes. So that started it, though. I got in a bad mood because I knew here's a fine. Now, he did tell me it'd be after January when it was due, so I wouldn't have to have it paid before Christmas. But it got me set up. At that time, I already was worried about work this week because at that time I did not have this trip to Conway set up. I was getting ready to make the phone calls. In fact, I had made the phone calls a couple of times on that trip already, and the lady I was supposed to talk to was out of the office, and I was waiting for her to get back in so I could talk to her and schedule this or find out if there was going to be any stones for me to schedule. So we were low on money. And, well, Michael, you keep telling me your wife is taking a job at a big corporation and making more money than she's ever made before. What about that? The problem is, when you take a job at a place, the first couple of weeks, you don't get a paycheck at the first couple of weeks. You got to work first. And that's where we are right now. She's in her second week of work. She'll get paid in December, a couple of times in December, and things are going to be much better then. It's going to be very helpful. That's wonderful. But at the moment, I've got bills coming in, and I'm getting worried about them. And we are almost 3/4 of the way through an hour-long podcast, so I'm probably not going to get to my third point because this is only my second point. Because my whole point with this, the entire reason that I started this point was to tell you, or to admonish you, not to let the devil get you down. Because I woke up this morning after having a bad night. Kayla and I, we didn't get into any fights, but we had some good conversations last night, and I was able to just admit to her that, the devil's got me down. There's no reason. We're doing great. The month of December is going to be so crazy because all of this pending work is kind of backing up, and they're all going to want it before Christmas. I'm going to be crazy busy. I'm going to be working my fingers to the bone. At least that's what it looks like. Now, there's a possibility that stuff could have to hold over till after Christmas if things don't get ready on the other end of the manufacturing side of my industry. But even then, if that happens, usually January is a slow month. So if that happens, then I won't be busy. I won't be slow in January. I'll be busy. So we'll see what happens. But things are looking great. And with Kayla now having a wonderful career and loves the job she's in, and the people seem to love her, things are looking up. There's no reason for me to be down just because there's 2 or 3 weeks that we're going to have to struggle a little bit. I need to put things into perspective because this is first world problems. The struggle that I'm struggling is laughable when you put it into the perspective of what's out there in our very own country, but not only that, all over the world, the things that people are having to do. I mentioned right now, I guess because I'm going 70 miles an hour on the interstate, it's probably got why the temperature has gone down, but it's 30 degrees Fahrenheit right now. It's below freezing. There are people all around me who are sleeping probably without power. Some of them, I'm sure, sleeping outside. I'm coming near Augusta, Georgia, which is a fairly large town. It's not a big city, but it's a large town. There will be homeless people there sleeping outside in this weather. Now it says 29 degrees. And I'm complaining because I might have to go 2 or 3 weeks not comfortable. I let the devil get me down yesterday. Now, you may not be a Christian, or, of course, you don't have to be a Christian to believe in the devil. Lots of religions believe in the devil. I personally am a Christian, and I believe in the devil, Satan, Lucifer. I believe that he is real and active and really works to bring people down. And especially the way I believe he works to bring Christians down as soon as he can. We have targets on our backs, because a Christian that is joyful, a Christian that is happy and optimistic, is going to be something that other people who haven't come to a belief in Jesus Christ are going to want to be near. We have a testimony just from the joy of the Lord. So if the devil can find ways to bring us down in our flesh, he's going to do it. And that's exactly what I allowed him to do yesterday. I didn't look at the big picture. I looked at what was going on right there in the moment and why it was making me uncomfortable right there in the moment. And I allowed him to get to me and ruin my entire day. So I want to encourage you, whether you're a Christian or whether you are not, whatever you call the negative influence that's getting you down, don't let it. Don't let it. Be positive. Be happy. Be joyful. Be a person that others want to be near, because you have a story to tell. You have a testimony of your own. Whether your testimony includes any sort of religious quality or not, you still have some way to bring light to someone's life. And you can't do that if you're negative. You can't do that unless you are joyful. People want that. And so I want to encourage you, don't let the devil get you down. And then the last thing I want to mention to you, I still haven't found my little notebook, but I remembered what I wrote down, the topics. The last thing I want to talk about before we finish this episode is make something with your hands. We're coming up on Christmas time. It looks like I probably financially will be able to do everything that I promised my kids I was going to be able to do. But there might be some other people that I have to give gifts to that I have to do something a little creative for, because I don't want to go crazy spending. First of all, I don't think you should go crazy spending. I've learned some valuable lessons throughout my life about gifts and giving. And I want to share them with you now. And I want to start with one story, and then I've got this story takes place several years ago, and it's a valuable life lesson that I've learned. The next story is going on right now, and it's something I'm involved with, and I think it's very special, and I'm going to tell you about it too, and it's right along the same lines. But to the one from years ago, my dad and my mom divorced. When I was in 4th grade, they married, they had me and my sister, they divorced. Several months later, they got back together and stayed married until I was in the 4th grade, and then while I was in the 4th grade, they divorced again. And my dad has since remarried, and my mom has since remarried, and my dad had weekend visitations every other weekend and stuff like that. But at Christmas, Dad we would go over there for Christmas, and he would always give us money. He's been giving us a $100 bill for as long as I can remember. Well, when I was a young teenager, my sister, I think, was a fairly old teen. I mean, she's 5 years older than me, so we were both in the teen years, I think. Can't remember exactly how old we were. I am thinking now, as I think back on it, that Daddy must have been going through a financial rough spot, because we were used to getting money at Christmas, and we went over there and we gave him whatever little cheap gift Mom had for us to give him. We exchanged gifts, and we were expecting a little envelope with some money in it. But instead, he brought out each of us a pine box. A little, maybe 9 by 18, sized pine box. It had varnish on it. It was pretty. It had a little brass decorations on the corners. It had a duck he had cut out and painted and attached to the front of it, and then a lid that just opened and closed at the top. And that was it. It was a pine box. It was beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of I don't know what you would call it. I don't really want to call it furniture, but if you were looking for something like that, you'd want to buy that one. It was beautiful. But to two teenagers who were expecting money for Christmas, we each got a pine box, and that was it. Needless to say, we smiled and thanked him and told him how much we loved our boxes, and we walked out of there very disappointed. And over the years, we would kind of make fun of it, because after that, the next year, I think we got money, and from that point on, we got money. And as a matter of fact, this year my dad asked me if he could buy me and my wife a TV instead of giving us money, which is, television's going to be more expensive than what he usually gives us, which is fine. I wasn't expecting that. He knew we were planning on getting a larger TV. He asked if he could do it for us, and hey, that's great. We're excited as we can be. But that pine box haunted me for years. I don't know what my sister did with hers. I know she was as disappointed or more than I was. At the time, I don't think that we were any more disappointed than each other with it. We were just completely disappointed with these pine boxes. And I hope if my dad listens to this, keep listening, Dad. If you listen to this podcast, and I don't think he probably does, but if he does, keep listening, Dad, because you need to hear this. Somehow I could never, over the years, part with that pine box. Somehow that pine box always held a special place, and I would use it to hold, for a while it held my Mad magazines, and then it held other things. Now it holds precious memories, little clippings from newspapers. My son played Oliver and was on the front page of the paper, and that newspaper is in there. Special things from life, and a lot of it that have to do with my children and my marriage are in there now. It just hit me one day, and I think it was when I was having a tough time at Christmas myself, making ends meet, and wasn't going to be able to do anything but make something for somebody. Wow, that is one of the best gifts I've ever received. Ever. And since then, I've come to realize a little something about my dad. My dad, he's never really cared much for Christmas. And it's not because he's a bah humbug Scrooge. He's very passionate about the arts. He's very passionate about crafting and making something with your hands. He's very passionate about giving for the sake of need, or if you're going to give for the sake of gifting to be nice, to do something that is really special for someone. And my dad is a unique breed, and I'm so glad, because he taught me that a gift made from your hands is priceless. You can put a price on a gift card, obviously. You can put a price on a television. Obviously, a $100 bill in an envelope has a price. It's worth $100. My dad does not like to put a price on love. He would rather build something that lasts forever with his hands. And that's what he did with that pine box. That pine box means more to me than anything he could buy me right now. That television, you may think I'm crazy. You may think I'm out of my mind, and you may think I'm lying to you. But if he were to come up to me today and say, son, well, not he. I would change my mind if he made the exchange, because he's the one that made the gift. But if someone offered me a yacht or $1 million for that pine box, I'm not crazy enough to think I wouldn't consider it, but I don't know that I would accept it. And I am human, and I'm fleshly, and I'm not stupid. But that pine box means that much to me now. I wish I'd been able to appreciate it then as I do now. And I'm going to pass it down to my son. And when I do, or my daughter, but Noah has said he wanted it. When I do, I'm going to make sure he understands the value of that piece. Making something with your hands means so much. And if it don't mean something at first to whoever you're giving it to, hopefully it will mean something in the long run, like that box does for me. Now, I mentioned that there's something going on right now because let's just say there are some people in our lives that mean a lot to us and are having a hard time financially. The young lady has written a poem to her husband of many years and has asked my wife and I to put that poem to music. She's coming over Sunday because she wants to record the song. Her gift is going to be singing this song, a recording of this poem set to music, with her singing it to her husband. I don't know if I can handle it. If my wife gave me something like that for Christmas, and my wife does wonderful things for me, but just this particular gesture just is so wonderful. I don't know how I would react if it was Kayla doing that for me. I just don't know, because it would be so emotional. I would not stop crying all Christmas. And that's the type of thing I want to encourage you to think about this coming Christmas season. If you're somebody who can't afford even a gift card, make something with your hands. Tell the person receiving the gift, I didn't have a lot I could do this Christmas, but I wanted to do something special for you. And although this isn't much, I put some time and effort into this because I wanted to show you how much I love you. Put some time and effort into something. Think about something that you can make for somebody. You don't have to be an artist. Just make a difference in their life by telling them you love them. And make something with your hands. It'll mean the world to them. I think that's going to be it. The time on the clock probably will be close to an hour after I get everything edited. I don't have all that much to edit out, and it says over an hour now when I'm looking at the actual time frame that has gone by for this episode. So it'll be right at an hour, and I appreciate you taking time with me. I'm probably going to record another episode on the way back this afternoon, because I have found that, especially in busy times of the year, I have a hard time being able to get things in. So this is a busy time of the year because there's so much going on that I am doing on the side while I'm not working because of the theater things and all this other stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and record another episode, so I've got it ready to go for next week. And I've got some ideas of some topics I want to talk about. So until next time, I want to tell you, by the way, to stop by the website at www.roadnoisepodcast.com. I have built it up more. There's a bio in there now. You can read my blog, the WordPress blog I've been talking about. There's a button on the home page where you can read my comedy blog. Just press that button. It'll take you right to the blog page, and you can read what I've been doing there. You can go to the resources page, check out the Trans-Siberian Orchestra stuff I'm going to load up there. If it's not there when you go right to it, be patient and keep looking. It will be up there soon. Also, you can get in touch with me via all the social media now. I'm trying my darndest to get on everywhere else. I still need to get into TuneIn Radio, and there's something I have to do to get that going, and I keep forgetting to do that, to be quite honest with you, but I need to do that this week. But check me out on all of the podcasters. Give me a rating and review in iTunes, and you can check me out. Also, I'm now on Tumblr. I'm Michael Blackston on Tumblr. You can look me up on Google+, obviously Facebook at facebook.com/roadnoisepodcast. Check out my Everything Arts group and ask to join there if you're an artist. You can contact me at roadnoisepodcast@gmail.com, and you can give me a call on our hotline at 706-389-0711. 0401. I think that's everything. If not, don't worry about it. Listen to one of the other episodes and you'll be able to get anything else. Until next time, I'm Mike Blackston. Thanks for riding along in the passenger seat with me as we learn to live life 1 mile at a time.